Greetings, everyone. Good evening. The Parking and Recreation Committee meeting will now come to order. Okay.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Commissioner Walton,
Here.
Commissioner Daniels,
Here.
Commissioner Moulton. Here. Commissioner Nielsen,
Here.
Commissioner White,
He's excused.
Vice Chair Maxwell,
Present.
Chair Gaines Lynch.
Present. Okay.
For the record, we have a quorum.
At this time, we'll call for, number 2 on the agenda, public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the commission on matters within the jurisdiction of the city of Seaside, but not on this agenda, may do so during this period. Public comment period for up to 3 minutes. Comments specific to this agenda items are heard under that item. For public record, please state your name.
Members of the public in the chamber, please approach the podium. And members of the public on Zoom, if you're dialing from a telephone, you can dial *9 or use the raise your hand feature.
Good evening, X. I'm here first and foremost to thank whoever included additional racks or towel racks in the women's bathroom. We have a total of about 9 now. So all the women are happy, we're excited. We understand that there's more changing tables that are coming down the pipeline, and I'm hoping that those are put in an area where they're not obstructing the lockers so that we have more entryway in and out when children are needing to be changed. This past week on Friday, we had 3 sets of twins in the middle of 9 o'clock coming in as the aerobics class was leaving. Needless to say, there was about 15 minutes in between that it took us to get in and out of just the locker room. So again, I'd like to mention that time frame, if we can change that, 9:15, 9:30 would even be better. That way it doesn't obstruct the in and out motion that we see in the mornings. Also, we couldn't get to the changing table, which also led to not being able to get there on time. We also have individuals that are coming from different areas like Prunedale because they don't have a pool that they're accessible for children. So I'd keep that in mind. The shower heads still need to be upgraded. I know that a resident had recently about a year ago replaced those. The water company offers free shower heads that we can get for free. We just need someone to install them. Another thing is we have a deep cleaning that doesn't happen. So I understand that the cleaning happens from staff from time to time, but as we know, we're short-staffed at the pool. And so it negates the effect of actually having a deep clean, meaning taking all the mats, getting the crevices and all that hair gets stuck around the crevices. So we want to make sure that that is within compliance. I also want to bring to the attention to the committee and the director of recreation, Havana Solis area needs to be mowed. We consistently walk there, me and my children, their grandparents also walk there. And my son's grandma made a comment about who is supposed to be mowing this area. And that's the area that volunteers aren't able to get to because we're handling the garden area, but there is a lot of weeds or bushes, or maybe there used to be some grass there, but it just needs to be at a level where it's not as tall as me. I'm only 5 feet. My son is about almost 4 feet and it's covering us. There's ticks, there's fleas, there's all sorts of items that could be there. So more attention to Havana Solis would be appreciated. And also adjacent to that, Lincoln Park, there's a big area where there's no mowing happening. So anybody that walks through there, a child falls, that's a big liability. It opens this city up for litigation. And so I know that we don't want that. So I stress really hard to take a good look at that area. And I don't know if it's Public Works that needs to go out and do that, at least to cut it down to ankle size so that we know what's going on in there if the children run or even pets run. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tanya Rose. I'm with the Blue Zones Project of Monterey County. And I wanted to just come here and share a wonderful partnership that we have helped kind of form with the workforce development of Monterey County. They have a group of young people, about 18 to 28 years old. Maybe those aren't so young any longer, but anyhow, a group of folks who are looking to get work experience in the field, specifically relating to food security issues. And through a wonderful partnership with FOSPA, Mr. Commissioner Daniels and his garden up at Havana Solis, we had about, I think, 20 folks there last Friday from about 8:30 a.m. till about 3:30, working hard in that garden, clearing out the pathways, pulling weeds, mulching, putting compost around the fruit trees. So really working to support the wonderful project at the Havana Solis Park there, as well as support food security in the city. This particular group is scheduled to work at Capra Park on Monday, and then perhaps down at the adult school and their community garden and some other locations throughout the city. But just wanted to share the good work that happened last week and will continue to work. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Public comment remains open. Those of you in the chamber, please approach the podium. And if you are on Zoom and dialing from a phone, you can dial *9, or you can use the raise your hand feature. Chair, no one on Zoom is requesting to speak, and it appears no one in the chamber.
Thank you for your comments. We will review the comments and get your issues to the proper person to address it. Thank you. All right, next up, approval of minutes. March 20th, 22 minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for March 20th?
Chairperson,
Yes.
I would like to point out a couple of things on the minutes before we approve them.
I think that comes at the questions, Diane.
Oh, okay,
Thank you.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second that.
The minutes have been moved to accept by Vice Chair Bobby Maxwell. And Commissioner Diane Nielsen. You have heard the motion calling for the question.
Oh, okay, I can ask my question. Thank you. A couple of edits as far as spelling and words on page 2. On the second paragraph. You got it? So in the second paragraph, about a little more than halfway down in the middle, it should be need and not needs. Carla Lobo's statement, if you read down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5th line down, it's the shower heads are old and they need to be replaced, not needs. And staff will talk to full staff on cleaning policy. They will look at resolving the issues with the mats. Thanks, Michael. And okay, I'm sorry, that's nothing. That's my own question mark for something else. And on page 3, I don't quite understand why we're repeating commissions, homeless, work cooperatively with FOSTA and city commissions. And it's also where it says updated items on work plan. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's way down. The third item, work cooperatively with FOSTA, is also repeated way down where under park cleanup. Same thing, work cooperatively with FOSTA. And then the next line says work cooperatively with FOSTA. And I'm not sure if they refer to different things. I don't really understand the different things, I guess, is what I'm saying. The first one is, I understand, work cooperatively with the commissions is a high priority. And then down where it says park cleanup, remove section. I don't know what remove section means, but you removed it and what section did we removed park cleanup section? Okay. And we added proposed activities for Gola Drake. And
If you recall, we had a couple different sections under the work plan that were kind of similar, so we combined them all into one. So that's kind of what happened there.
I mean, if I read it, if I'm a person and I just read it, I'm not really going to understand what that means, but I guess it really, that's nitpicking. And the third work cooperatively. What does that refer to? Updated proposal activities to read. Now that's kind of like the same thing as we're saying up in the very first work cooperatively.
I believe the way the minutes here were specific to each section of the work plan. So when we got to each section, these were her notes for each one. Where it says remove section, that was where we were removing it and combining it with the other one on top. So basically that one you just had that worked cooperatively with FOSTA, that one was combined with the one at the top for one item instead of having two separate items.
Okay. And I think that was all. Thank you.
Are there any more questions?
Public comment.
Public comment?
Members in the public, if you have any comments of the minutes item, please approach the podium. Or if you're on Zoom, you can use the raise your hand feature or dial *9.
Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes of March 20th, 2023?
Aye.
Opposed have the same right? Hearing none, the minutes pass, are accepted. Item 4, review of the agenda. If there are any items that arose after the 72-hour posting deadline, this is the point in the meeting where a vote may be taken to add the item to the agenda. A 2/3 majority vote is required. Are there any agenda items that anyone would like to add? Hearing none, we'll go to the next. Item number 5 on the agenda, business items. A, receive presentation from conservation techniques and provide input about the parks master plan process.
All right, commissioners, on the line, we have Mr. Steve Dew. He is the representative from Conservation Techniques, and he will be providing a presentation on the process, on how they're laying it out, everything for the Parks Master Plan for your review, and then there'll be room to make comments and suggestions moving forward. So without further ado, I will welcome Mr. Steve Dew.
Thank you, Dan, and quick sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, super. So good evening, Commission. My name again, Steve Dew, Conservation Techniques. We're a California firm focusing on parks and recreation and open space planning, and excited to be working with the City of Seaside on an update to your Parks and Recreation Master Plan. As Dan mentioned, I've got a brief presentation to walk you through the scope and timeline of the overall project and leave a fair bit of time for some dialogue with the Commission to get your thoughts on how things are today and where you'd like to see things go going forward. So if you bear with me, I'll put my presentation up on screen and we'll go from there. So if I could get a head nod or a verbal that you can see the screen.
We're good.
All right, super. So as I mentioned, just a brief presentation to give you a highlight of the overview and introduction to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, touch on the timeline and the scope, have some discussion questions built in, and reference some next steps, just to give you a sense of the overall process so you know where we're going and how the Commission will stay involved as we move through the process with you. So for primarily the audience, excuse me, I'm also fighting a cold, so apologize in advance for that. So mostly for the audience, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan is the city's guiding plan and strategic plan for managing and enhancing the city's parks, recreation programs, trail opportunities, recreation opportunities for the city of Seaside. The last plan was put together in 2005, and an update is timely to reassess where the city is in terms of goals and where it wants to go in terms of amenities, improvements, and enhancements. The plan is a policy document. It is the strategic plan for the Recreation Department to lay out what the next 10 plus years looks like in terms of improvements and enhancements. And it's also a strategic guide in that it will include goals and policies. It'll relate to the general plan. It'll relate to other city plans and also relevant regional or county plans. So it is that planning document that sets that path forward. It's also a capital planning document in that it will include a list of specific recommended project improvements for the city over a 10 plus year window. So projects will be listed out by project type, by project name, sequenced over time, costed out. So you have a sense of the full scale of improvements, enhancements, things requested by the community. And that capital element, excuse me, is not a budget per se. It is really a planning tool where the commission and staff will work toward moving projects into the city's budget, have the conversations with city council to keep projects fresh in the budget and finance. But the plan and the plan process is also, I see it as a communications tool. And by that, I mean the plan will help tell the story of where Seaside is today, what was in the older plan, what improvements have been made or accomplishments completed, and where the city wants to go based on what we hear from the public during the course of the process. Public engagement's a big piece of the overall process, and I'll touch on that here in a moment. Again, as a strategic plan, it's a high level plan, a 30,000 foot look at the overall system of parks, the overall system of programs, what you offer, So it's about looking at your strengths, looking at key areas of improvement, asking the questions of the community about what are the needs today and what do you think the needs will be 5-10 years from now. But it's also at its core about where the city should focus resources and energy over the next 5 to 10 years. So it will help frame improvements, and it will also help frame those policy and project discussions about what sorts of projects get elevated in priority and how projects can get funded. This is just a simple, schematic of the overall project timeline. We anticipate the project will last for about a year or a little bit less. And the first phase of the project really is about grounding the project team, coordinating with staff, learning which way is up, capturing all the existing, all the existing city plans, other relevant plans, getting a sense of base information, what's the current inventory, what's the collection of programs that you offer, things like that. And from that, we'll also start doing our own research in preparing updated demographic profiles, compiling fresh maps, and preparing for some map analytics, as well as looking at updated recreation trends that we can apply to the project going forward. The next phase is about inventory assessment, and there our landscape architect will be visiting Seaside. She's going to visit and assess each park and facility to do a conditions assessment, to look at the existing on-the-ground infrastructure, what's available today, its condition, its quality, its age, and also look for opportunities for potential enhancements to each site. So it's not just about doing a checklist of what's there, but it's about identifying the spaces that might accommodate enhancements or improvements going forward. So whether there's adequate space for some other element that the community might voice interest in, or if there's ways to enhance or improve maintenance or other operational work that goes on within the park system. So that will help inform the assessment of the overall system of parks and programs. And throughout the course of this, we'll also be doing public process, and that's the next slide. So I'll touch on that in detail here in a moment. But the core central section of the plan process is really about digesting what we see on the ground, what we hear from coordinating with staff, operations staff, with the commission, and also council, and also digesting what we hear from the community through their preferences and perspectives for things like amenities, and doing that through a community survey and other different engagement opportunities throughout the process. That'll help inform a review of the goals and policies. So we'll look at the 2005 plan as a starting point. We'll look at the general plan, and we'll see what the direction of those documents were, and work with staff and the commission to put a fresh lens on goals and policies, bring in contemporary topics, things like climate action, diversity, equity, inclusion, other things that might not have been in common discourse 15 years ago. We'll also, during this middle phase, do a lot of the analysis. So I mentioned earlier the notion of mapping. So within our approach, we will look at the overall system of parks. We'll map those out, but we'll also map travel sheds for all of the parks, trails, and we'll have a sense of who lives within, let's say, a reasonable distance to a park or open space, and then who doesn't. And that will help inform maybe some targeted acquisition or targeted easement opportunities, things like that. In this phase, we'll also synthesize community needs and start to think through items such as partnerships, funding, and start to pull the plan document together. Later in the fall, the attention really does turn toward priorities and strategies and refining that list of potential projects, moving things up and down in priority or based on cost or in conversation with the community and the commission, and really starting to dial in the types of potential recommended projects that will be part of the new plan. Implementation ideas, things like funding tools, partnership opportunities, et cetera, that'll also be discussed in the document. And then as a city plan, it will go through a city review process, including the commission, the planning commission, and city council, with the intended approval of the final plan around the end of this calendar year. I mentioned the outreach component as a significant piece of the overall project. And this schematic really just lays out in sequence the different elements of the community engagement process for you. So we're in this fourth column here in April with Park and Recreation Commission. We'll meet with you at least 3 times before the plan draft is formalized to get your feedback, to get your guidance, and get your thoughts on the direction of the plan. I imagine Dan will meet with you in those intervening sessions to give you updates and get your thoughts as the process unfolds. One of the main ways in which we will be reaching out to the community is actually underway right now. It's a community survey. Some of you may have seen it. It is a dual format survey. So it's a mail out printed survey to a random sample of 2,500 households within Seaside. It will also be an online survey available to everybody else. So the random sample version will give us that statistically valid snapshot of the community's preferences and priorities about parks, recreation, open space. But then we really just want to capture as much information as we can from the community. So the online version will add value to the overall data set. Just for reference, the 2 data sets between the online and the mail out version are separate. We keep them in separate buckets, so there's cross contamination. But it also allows us to look at the data and see if, let's say, the mail survey sample is saying one set of interests and the general public online version is going in a different direction. So we can look at the differences, also look at the differences based on geography, age group, and households with kids. The survey is also being conducted in dual languages, so it's English and Spanish. So again, it's out right now as a printed document, and we're starting to promote the online version of it this week as well. The goal is to have the survey wrapped up around mid-May, and then we'll use some preliminary information to springboard into an online an open house, an in-person open house in early May. We've tentatively scheduled May 11th for that open house, again, be it in person. So part of that would be a quick snapshot of the process, a quick recall of what we heard in the survey, but diving deeper into information about priorities or interests, some mapping activities, dot activities, ways to get the community engaged with the process and provide us more information that we can layer into the overall plan analysis. We'll be doing a second open house in the fall. And that will align with kind of that priorities and strategies phase where we've got some ideas and basically we'll be saying, here's what we heard. Did we hear it correctly? Are we going in the right direction, wrong direction? What do we want to add or change in terms of potential recommendations? So again, that'll be in the fall time. Also this spring, we are working with staff to start to identify stakeholders for group and individual discussions. So small group discussions, 8 to 10 people, potentially around topic areas. For example, topic of, let's say, recreation programming or aquatics or different user types. So we're in the process of thinking that through. But the intent there is to bring together some diverse voices to have a conversation with them about what's working, what needs attention, where the city should go from here. And those one-on-one conversations, again, are just adding a little more value to everything else we're hearing from the community. Those stakeholder discussions could include conversations with city partners, whether it's FOSPA or the school district or others. And again, it's just another way to kind of get some feedback about how the city's doing, how it could be a better partner, and where the future directions might lie. Over the course of the summer, we'll take a slightly more passive approach to outreach, but really go to where people are and where they're gathering. So attending existing community events, using tabling exercises, again, simple things that people could do as they pass by, whether it's with dots or simple sticky notes, to keep the project alive in the minds of people, but also to capture more information as we go forward. Over the course of the whole project, we will have an online presence. So city website will include project information, and we'll also be promoting the survey and some of these other activities through social media outlets as well. We'll also touch base with City Council several times during the course of the project, mostly toward the end for the review and approval, but we'll also want to make sure we do at least one touch point with them midway, so they get a debrief on community survey and open house information, and kind of a set the tone sort of session for where the project might be going. So that is a long-winded explanation of where we are with the project, where the project's going, and kind of all the various pieces. Now I want to transition to asking you some questions and getting your feedback. I've got a series, excuse me, of 3 questions here. I'm just going to show one at a time. And if we could just start a conversation about, basically, what do you value about Seaside's parks, programs, and open spaces? What do you see as some of the strengths that the city has? And maybe asked a little differently, what do you want people to remember about growing up in Seaside when it comes to parks and recreation? So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
At this time, does anyone have any comments? What do you value about Seaside Parks, programs, open spaces?
So the question is, what do we value about Seaside Parks and recreational activities? I, of course, like many of you, grew up in Seaside. There's a park, a pocket park, right across the street from me. And when we were growing up, there was a carousel and a seesaw. And like many of us in the boomer generation who grew up without the rubber protections and all the other things that the kids have now to keep from getting their knees banged up and all the other wonderful things that we walked away. I still have scars that I can show you from falling off that carousel because you tried to get it going as fast as you could, and then you'd fall off. So I have wonderful memories about growing up in Seaside and those parks. And what I'd like to see is for this generation of kids to have those same wonderful memories. We have 20 something, I hear various numbers of parks, 24, 25, 26, 25 today. 25 parks growing up, and I've never lived in a community that had that many parks. So that I think is both a blessing and a curse, but we have that space, and it's just wonderful that that's available to the kids that are growing up today.
Great feedback. Any other thoughts? Anyone want to tag on to that?
Thank you. excuse me. Parks, same thing with me growing up. I mean, it was a special place to go in the neighborhood. And I can't imagine neighborhoods without them. But now as an older adult, I am really looking more at the urban forestry part of parks and the different wildlife that it supports and the things it does for our mental health and sense of well-being and pride in our community, and the mitigation of stormwater drain off and all the wonderful things that it does. And also looking for more older adult oriented activities like fitness courses or pickleball. And I don't really play bocce ball, but things that people can go and gather together that are older and not try to play on the monkey bars. And I think if it's interspersed with more trees, more pollinator plants, more inclusive type of equipment for different abilities, those are the things that are important to me. And I feel like, yes, 25 parks in our area, I feel like that's too many. I feel like we could consolidate some of those and have more attention put on the parks that are there. That's my input.
My input would be that, is anyone else you want to say? My input would be that it's a good thing to have the parks in the neighborhood. I grew up in the inner city of Chicago, Illinois, and we didn't have parks available to us in our neighborhood the way they are here. And I think it's wonderful to be able to go down, walk down. I walk 2 houses from my park in my neighborhood, and to see the kids on the swings, and we no longer have merry-go-rounds as Diane, not Diane, was saying, but it's a great thing but I think the parks in the neighborhoods should be more geared to the people in the neighborhood. Like when we moved in my neighborhood, there was a lot of kids, and then it fluctuated till there was no kids. But now it's coming up to the children are being born, and they're grown up, and they're not hanging in front of the house. So there's a place for them to go down into the parks. So I think that was wonderful that we have that park there. But I really think that what Commissioner Nielsen is saying about she's getting older. But some communities have more seasoned adults than they have the youth. So I think the parks in the communities should be geared towards what that community has.
Great. Any other thoughts on this question, or should I move forward one?
Just to piggyback on what everybody else has said, with having so many pocket parks, I think it adds to the communal space. I remember growing up, there was a lot of barbecue pits and benches, which I think in most parks have become disarrayed, have been left to dilapidate. I think as you're going through the plan, just having that in mind, that even though a lot of these parks are smaller spaces, that they are still utilized by the neighborhoods, and having like a barbecue pit or a bench or a table would definitely beneficial. Thank you.
I think that we're really fortunate to live in this community because of all the parks and especially one of our major parks, which is Laguna Grande. It's got a lot of wildlife and a lake and a trail that goes all the way around, and it's really relaxing to take a walk around the lake or just sit on a bench and watch the ducks fly or whatever. And then also, we have a lot of good programs, like at the pool, there's the older adult swimming and Tiny Tots, whatever you call that program. The senior programs are really good also at the center. And then we have a lot of athletic fields for the youth that are involved in sports, baseball and soccer and football and that sort of thing. So I think we're really fortunate to be living in this community.
Would there be any other comments? Okay. Next question.
All right. So building on some of the comments you've already shared, what recreation opportunities are missing in Seaside? What could be done better or differently in terms of maybe what's offered or how things are managed or maintained? Again, we'll be looking at the current condition when we're in the field. But again, your insights will help guide maybe how we view what we're looking at out there. So, you know, I've heard pickleball, I've heard inclusive play, I've heard some other options. So what, if anything, might be missing that you want to build upon or enhance over the next 10 years?
So as far as what I've seen, living here in Seaside and just observing, I've seen the success that we're having, you know, at Catino, and the fact that it's specific to something, that it's tons of kids there skateboarding. That field is nonstop usage. And you go to a lot of the other parks and you might see occasionally one or two people, a couple teens hanging out there. What I would like to see, nothing specific, but how can I word this? Make it a destination, make the park about something specific that draws people there. Like it was said, we have 25 parks, and I do want to acknowledge the fact that that takes a lot of maintaining just from the get-go, but you have 25 parks, you could make something themed more or less where it attracts a certain crowd of people and dedicate that park to something like that, like we do at Catino, and maximize the usage. Whereas if we go cookie cutter, oh, there's a plastic slide and, you know, some bars, people could get that anywhere, you know, but they're coming in droves to play at Catino. They're coming in droves to skateboard at the skate park. So that's all.
Right.
We give it back to you.
I have something.
You have something.
Yeah, you know, in Salinas, there's a park, it's called Tatum's Garden.
Mhm.
I would like to maybe think about creating some kind of a park geared in that, towards that theme. There's a lot of accessible play equipment for kids with disabilities and
Mhm.
challenged people. So I would like for us to think towards that.
That's a theme, so. Would there be any more comments from the commission? Okay, so.
Back to me, or is there another?
You stay.
So I've done these in sequence, so we can always go back to a response on a prior question too. So given that the plan is a 10+ year plan, imagine what Seaside is going to look like in 2035. It's just over 10 years from now. What can you see happening with regard to the park spaces like we've just talked about, making some more specialized or unique, with trails or trail connections? What do you want to connect to? And is there opportunities to tie different parks together maybe? Or about recreation options, whether it's for youth or for adults? Any thoughts on kind of your vision of the future if you had your crystal ball?
Yeah, I have a thought about that as far as the trail connections. Because there's a recreation trail that goes pretty much around the whole entire Monterey Peninsula, from Pebble Beach to Casterville. And it kind of bypasses our city. And we have Laguna Grande Park, which I think it's in the plans with the Joint Powers Authority in the future to do some sort of a trail off of that to Delray Oaks and all the other former Fort Ord area. There's that. And I also meant to mention about our city really lacking a indoor basketball gym in the prior question. So that I believe should be a priority for our community also.
I don't have one comment. Would childcare be any part? Could this be any part of community services, parks and recreation, childcare, like an expansion of childcare or after-school care or all-day childcare? That would be something that I think could be really useful in this city.
Thanks for the feedback. If Dan, you want to respond on the question part of that, I'd defer to you.
I think that the childcare can be included in this, because, you know, technically our day camps would be considered childcare. Our after-school programs would be considered childcare. So if the question is to be expanding on it, yes, then we can definitely, you know, research ways how to partner with the school district or other community groups to figure out how we can increase our offerings.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on the last comment, just having the parks more geared to recreations, having the green spaces more accessible. I don't know if irrigation is part of the conversation as well, but just having accessible water, if like a community garden in the neighborhood wanted to sprout up, or just certain things like that. I'm not too privy of grass, but just having places inside the neighborhood, like as we had the conversation of pocket parks, having places inside the neighborhoods where the kids can have places to play, especially with the talk of housing coming up in the city. A lot of more apartments, a lot of places without backyards are going to be occupied. So I definitely want to see the parks more geared to outdoor recreation and just having the space for kids to spend their time. Thank you.
Robert's comment reminded me of the density in apartment living, which is more, I think of it more as being on the west side of Fremont Street, or right before you get to Fremont Street going west, that there really aren't any parks in that area. And there is a lot of density in that area, so they have to come a number of blocks to get to a park. And the other idea I guess it would be more of a development issue, would be having play space in apartment complexes or housing complexes or mixed use buildings. But I don't know how that would work with master plan for parks. Thank you.
I'd like to say also in 2035, I think I'd like to see youth-centered north or south or another recreation center. Oldemire is a very nice place to be, but it's so far for some of the youth to get to. So maybe it should be something up the hill for the kids as well. And adults. And as Commissioner Maxwell was saying, the inside basketball court. I think all that could tie in together on the top of the hill as well. That's what I see in 2035. Steve, is there anyone else would like to make? Okay.
In 2035, as far as the park spaces, I'd love for us to make sure that we pay attention to pollinator friendly stuff, keeping green in the parks with so much development and concrete going on around us. I think it's special to have those places that are green and remind you you're outside. There's flowers, there's trees, butterflies and things like that, just so as development continues and construction continues, and I'm all for a youth center and basketball court, but as far as what we have right now, I want us to be mindful of keeping flowers and trees and outdoor spaces really outdoor as opposed to a lot of hardscapes and stuff like that.
Are there any other comments? We'll return it to you, Steve.
All right. So changing gears just a little bit, this is the last set of questions I've got for you. And it's about community engagement. So I mentioned earlier that the community survey is already out in the community circulating. We've already received over 140 responses and we have only pushed it for a week now. So we expect to have some strong results coming in over the next several weeks. But as we think forward to the in-person open house that's coming up in May, or other engagement opportunities, what is it that you want to learn from the community? Is there anything that you want to hear about in particular? And maybe separately, are there any hot button or hot issues that we need to know about that we need to potentially avoid or work around?
Commission.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the survey. When you mentioned that it was already out, I was wondering, would it not be within the purview of this commission to have had input into that survey? You're asking us what would we like to learn after the fact. Would it not have been within our purview to have input previous to it going out, prior to it going out?
I did review the survey and I took in a lot of considerations and it went through the staff level. And I believe with the time frame that we were trying to get out, it was within our meetings. So staff looked at it and we felt confident with, the questions that were being, provided out there.
It's nice to give input post survey, but it would have been nice. Emailed works. I don't know. It just would have been nice to have input ahead of time rather than after the fact. But I do have every confidence that your review was thorough, complete.
Thank you.
Thank you. Some of the things I want to learn from the community are, what do they value in their daily life that makes them happy and feel fulfilled. Another thing is, how do they feel safety wise in letting their children go to parks on their own? And if they do let them go, or do they accompany them? You know, how does that work? The other question I have is their ability to take their kids to a park, or the time, I guess. How much time do they have to utilize a park? And if they did have the time, if they do have the time, what do they want to see happen or be participating in that park? And their past experience in parks.
I would say specifically, what amenities would you want at your local pocket park compared to what amenities do you want at the larger parks? And if there's anything in the city that's like you're missing that maybe you've experienced at another city's park or in a different community that you would like here in Seaside?
Point of clarification, is this going to be taken out to the public for public comment? Thank you.
I think I think it's a hot topic or a hot button issue, both. Is having restroom facilities available at some of the parks. That's pretty major, I think. There are a couple of parks that do have restrooms, like Laguna Grande is one, and Catino Park is another one, and Soper Field. But some of the other ones we need to consider, I think, having the facilities there.
Are there any more comments from the commission? Steve?
All right. Well, I do appreciate all the feedback and the insights. And again, this is just the first session with you, just to kind of touch on the project and give you a sense of where we're going. We will be coming back to you with more information about what we hear and getting your guidance going forward. Just in terms of some next steps for your reference. So again, the survey is being promoted probably through mid-May. I say probably because we'll be paying attention to the pace at which responses are coming in. So if we need to keep it open a little longer, we're okay with doing that. We'll stay flexible to the project and just make sure that we're capturing a solid set of feedback from the community for the project. The site assessments I referenced earlier, the condition assessments, those are going to occur in early May. And the stakeholder discussions will likely, excuse me, be between May and June. Again, pending conversations with staff and coordinating for those discussions. And the first open house is tentatively set for May 11th. So more on that soon. That's all I had for you. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen and then send it back to the chair.
Okay. Okay, so if we could have those questions put back up and we can open it up
I can put them, Steve.
for public comment.
Will do. There. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Before we open it up to public comment, Commissioner Maxwell has a question for you, Steve.
Thank you for your presentation, for one. I would like to know the information for the online survey.
I will be posting that this week.
Oh,
We
okay.
just got the information today and we're working on, we've created a special webpage for the master plan. We're gonna be putting all that stuff on it. So we're still finalizing those details.
We are now open to public comment.
All right, members of the public in the chamber, please approach the podium. If you are on Zoom and dialing with the telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand, or you can use the raise your hand feature.
Okay, a couple of questions. One, can you give me some examples of outreach that you've done in other municipalities and what those look like? It's kind of unreassuring to know that there's already a survey out there and that there was a subject matter that was not discussed in this committee, which I believe you're all appointed for this specific reason. So regardless if staff took a look at it, it's your due diligence to look at it also. When we were here last meeting, we were specifically told about the master plan, the park plan, that it was coming down the pipeline. That could have been a perfect opportunity to give you that survey so that you could have took a look at it and make sure that your constituents would have been able to answer those questions. Another thing is, who are we pulling from? What demographic or what area? Because as we know, the concentration of certain individuals and certain ethnic, cultural backgrounds are separated in the city of Seaside. So I'd like to know where that is concentrated. That 2,500, I believe, out of 30,000 is concerning. The fact that we are just getting the information with regards to the surveys online and it's not even gone public, and give or take maybe a couple of weeks before we have the first open house does not give the community enough input to even understand why we're coming about this master plan. The last thing we would like is community members to come to the city council meeting and accuse this commission for not doing their due diligence because of staff recommendations or staff not doing their job to provide you with the information that you need in order for you to make educated decisions about what surveys should be going out and who they should be going out and when they should be relatively available to the entire community, not to a certain select few. Another thing that I'd like to bring attention to is the foundation of these parks. We do have 25. I love the idea of having some sort of engagement in those communities individually. I don't think it's enough to have 2 open houses, one in the spring and one in May, but we have 25 parks. So the uniqueness of this community needs to be taken into consideration. I don't see that has been taken into consideration other than the conversation that you've had with city staff, and city staff does not correspond to community members. Again, over 30,000 individuals encompass the city of Seaside. So I'd like more engagement to happen at the forefront of community members. I also would like a more in-depth conversation about what this would look like in 2035. Someone mentioned an indoor basketball facility. The California Sea Kings put in an unsolicited proposal back in 2019 that is currently tabled right now that encompasses a whole 92-acre facility of basketball. Not only that, an amphitheater as well. That's information that this commission would love to have and incorporate in this master plan, but that also wasn't provided from staff. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Reese and I'm representing FOSPA. I just wanted to say, what do I value about the parks? I value that just a few doors down from my house, I have open space and a place to walk, and I see people walking there all the time. And I really value that. I've never had that where I've lived before. I value all the programs that the Park and Recreation Department offers. I think that they're really wonderful. I think that also we have a lot of maintenance issues, as have been talked about before in this meeting. We do have some parks that have been really just neglected, and I'm sure that that's going to come up in the analysis of the parks. As a member of FOSPA, I hope that any future plans incorporate and build on the good work that, volunteers have already put into these parks, because if you look at the difference between a FOSPA park 10, 15 years ago and what it looks like now, there's a vast difference, and there is so much improvement My other question is, I would think that we would be a stakeholder, FOSPA would be a stakeholder in this, and I'm hoping that there is an opportunity for FOSPA as an organization to meet with someone so that we could have input, because we're kind of like in the ground, we're in the ground. We're on the ground like every week, every Saturday, we are in a park. So we know those 10 parks intimately. So we would really like to give our feedback. Also, build especially on the pollinator gardens, because these are so valuable to us, because we know a lack of irrigation is a problem. And so having those kinds of pollinator plants that will sustain themselves after they've been irrigated for 3 or 4 years, that's a plus. And we're hoping that the whole subject of irrigation itself is a concern here. I'd also kind of like to know, I would like to know who is going to be invited to the open house, and what kinds of how are you going to elicit the information, and how are you going to make sure that a good representation of all of Seaside is present at the open houses? I think that would be really important. I hope too there can be some conversation about vegetable gardens, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is Toby. I'm a Seaside resident, and thank you for allowing us to speak on this. And I'm not sure if this is the right forum, but I work for a playground company. Our company is Zoom Recreation, and we're a full service company. We do playground surfacing and shades. And so I wanted to offer just to be a resource to, the committee or the parks, if there's any questions that you have about park design or implementing some of the different things that you're looking for in the different parks. We have a number of different things that are some areas that you mentioned of interest. We have themed playgrounds, and then we also have exercise for adults, exercise equipment. All of our equipment is recycled. So it's something that you're mentioning for the sustainable, the gentleman that was speaking from his company for sustainable things for the city of Seaside. So a lot of just the different things that have been mentioned for goals for the parks. And so just wanted to be here as a resource. And if there are any, design or anything like that we could help to share as you're planning the different parks over the next number of years. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Kathy Rivera. I'm a resident here in Seaside, and I wanted to follow up on comments about outreach, especially in reaching everyone in Seaside about the opportunity to make comments on a parks master plan, that an effort is made to reach residents who are Spanish speaking primary language in the places where they tend to get information, gather, and have community influencers that they trust. So this would be like at the schools, in churches, maybe even posting in places where they generally shop. Because having been part of charrettes and public feedback gatherings, I have really noticed the absence of what is probably about 40 or 45% of the population of Seaside. And we see the same usual people who follow the city council and commission operations. And those people show up and give their comment, but we're missing a large portion of Seaside. So that would be my appeal to you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to speak on this. It was also wonderful, Steve, to hear your presentation. Looking forward to supporting the process over the next year or so. My name is Tanya Riss. I'm a resident of Seaside, as well as representing the Blue Zones Project, Monterey County. Blue Zones definitely has a strong interest in seeing vital and well-used parks in all of the cities and spaces where we work. So I'm really pleased that this topic has been elevated and has been invested in so far. In terms of, what do I value about Seaside's Park? I mean, I think the 25 pocket parks that exist is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, the fact that it's already built into the city infrastructure, we're not having to kind of scramble to find new parks and open spaces is really special. I want to highlight one of the points that was raised just in terms of ensuring that there's equitable parks close to our very, very dense neighborhoods. I think that's something that is missing in the city of Seaside currently. And I think there's great opportunity to explore that. And I hope this master planning effort does so. I think absolutely considering climate resilience is central to this work, considering our urban forest, really focusing in on our native habitat and pollinator gardens is integral. Of course, from a food security perspective, supporting more and more community gardens is paramount. Of course, we want those to be community led. So, we want to have zoning that is appropriate to support these spaces, but also supporting community members as well. I think accessible trails within parks and connecting parks is absolutely central to this work. This supports active transportation, an overall healthier population, multimodal, so folks can roll, walk, bike, just access these trails however they can, because we want people to be out in parks and open space. Contributes significantly to our mental health, which is a serious issue we all know since COVID. I think the idea, it's wonderful, the sports fields we have. Seaside is also very under-resourced when it comes to sports fields. So I think that will likely be something that is surfaced in this assessment, but something that I think is needed to be paid attention to. The other piece, I'm not certain if it's part of this, but I think, doing a look at what the staffing is to support these parks is critical, not only from a maintenance perspective, but also a programmatic perspective. Mr. Munoz does good work and he's a recreation director. There's not a parks director in the city. There's an active public works team, right? But I think that's something that really needs to be looked at. If we want to invest and ensure that these parks will continue to be a strong and well cared for resource in the city, we need to really think hard about the staffing. So regular maintenance schedule, and then of course, leveraging these incredible partnerships. FOSPA is extraordinarily special, unbelievably unique in the resources they bring to bear. The Resources Conservation District of Monterey County as well has leveraged a tremendous amount of resource to support these municipal parks. So yes, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Let's go to Zoom. Got one person on Zoom right now with their hand raised. The caller ending in 6797. You can now unmute and speak public comment.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Michelle Overmeyer. I'm a resident of Seaside and I'm the vice chair of the Environmental Commission. I'm joining by telephone, so unfortunately I didn't get to see the presentation, but I did enjoy hearing it. And I am excited that the city is going to be starting the master plan process for the parks. I do have a request, and that is that you please include a representative from the Environmental Commission in the stakeholder meetings throughout the process. The Environmental Commission has a work plan, and part of that includes advocating for sound environmental policies, including those related to flora, fauna, and biome protection. So I think that is relevant here in the master plan process. And then in regards to the prompt related to connections and trails, I do want to say that funneling people to only one point of entry creates a barrier for access. So fences tend to be barriers. So I think parks and trails should have as many access points as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, not seeing anyone else in the chamber, and there is no one else on Zoom.
Okay. Steve? Would you like to? Excuse me. Steve, would you like to say anything else?
Steve, do you think you can answer a couple of questions that may have come up?
I can attempt. There were a host of questions in there. Dan, would you want to guide me in which questions you want me to refer to first?
Can you really just highlight the statistically valid survey and the process and how the function of that works?
Sure. So as I attempted to explain earlier in the presentation, the survey is dual format. So again, it's a mail out survey that's sent to a random sample of 2,500 households. The second component is an online survey that's open to the entire community. So think of those as two separate surveys. So for the mail out survey, what we do is we mail out a printed version in English and Spanish, plus a response envelope that's already pre-printed with a return address, to a random sample of 2,500 households. That random sample is derived from a mail marketing list that is maintained and updated. So the people who send you junk mail know everything about where people are moving and who lives where at any time. So it's that group basically that we use to collect a complete list of addresses, residential addresses in the city. From that, we do a random sampling of that list to capture 2,500 households. So that is the basis for identifying who that sample is. And for the mail out survey, the intent really is to hit a sampling of the community, because if we get around 300 or so responses, statistically, that represents a randomized snapshot of the general public. So if we've got the number based on that random sample, then we can say with some certainty, plus or minus 5%, that the responses we receive from the survey will align with the responses we would hear from everybody in the community. Again, plus or minus 5%. So that random sample is a strong baseline, but it's not the only data that we're using in the project, because we have the online version, which again will be accessible to everyone in the community, again in English and Spanish. And the intent for that really is to capture as much data as we can from the community. So we'll be promoting it very heavily, working with staff to, get the word out, have the commissions get the word out, etc. So we will have two data sets that we can then say with even greater certainty represent the general sentiment of the Seaside community. So we've used this process over 15 years on multiple projects with success. And it really is a useful way to capture not only targeted information, but general information of the overall community. So hopefully that helps.
And then Steve, can you just confirm too, that once you mail out that survey, it doesn't end there, correct?
Correct. The mail out survey is the first piece of mail that they receive. And that mailing also includes a cover letter that says your household's been randomly selected. We're doing this park master plan. We really value your input. Please take a minute to, provide the survey or use the QR code to do it digitally online. So again, people who receive the mail survey can send back a printed copy with the envelope provided, or they can do it as an online tool through, again, a separate bucket of surveys that is specific to the mail sample. Then 7 to 10 days later, we mail out a reminder postcard in English and Spanish that says, hey, we recently sent you a survey from the city. Please take a moment to, fill it out. Here's the link, here's the QR code, or send it back. So that is the mail survey piece in a nutshell. If people choose not to complete it, they will likely still hear about the survey through all of the other outreach for the online sampling. And they're certainly open to take the survey in that format.
I believe there's a question about community engagement in other communities. Can you provide a little bit of insight on that and how you worked with that with communities that are similar to Seaside?
Sure. And just for this commission's reference, our firm is familiar with Salinas, and we did their plan about 4 years ago. So we're familiar with the general Monterey area to a degree. But we also have a tendency to work in communities that range in size between 2,000 people to about 800,000 people. So we don't go to work for those really giant cities, but we do work in a wide array of communities that have differing sizes, but also have Spanish language or other languages as core elements of the community. We've recently completed several projects up in the greater Seattle area where we've done survey and outreach work in up to 4 different languages for multiple projects. So we're capable of handling the diversity of a community like Seaside. And as far as the process elements, what we've outlined for the Seaside project is very comparable to what we do for most of our projects. Again, the intent is to capture as much information from the community as we can, aiming for ways to engage with people that are easy for them, that are quick for them, that are at their convenience. So again, things like the tabling events and attending community events, going to where people are, whether it's farmers market or movies in the park, is just another way to have a person touch the project over the course of the planning window. So most of our projects do include surveys, stakeholder discussions, group discussions, public meetings that could be hybrid, in person, or online only, and tabling and the full range of what we've offered here is very comparable to what we do in other communities.
All right, thanks, Steve. A couple of these questions I think I may be able to answer. When in regard to who will be invited to the open house, ideally we want as many members of the community to attend the open house. So we will push it out on a variety of different formats to hopefully get and draw on that attendance. We're going to definitely try and outreach the Hispanic community as well. And we are going to probably be relying a lot on our partners to help us reach these community members, whether it's FOSPA, Blue Zones Project, a lot of the community nonprofits, CPY, Village Project. We want to use those groups and those partnerships we have as well to help reach their networks to get people to attend. So we are definitely going to be pushing that in a variety of different ways. That kind of hit the outreach. And then, yes, we will be working as FOSPA will be one of the stakeholders, and we are also going to be looking at a lot of our other nonprofits that will be stakeholders, as well as our city commissions, Environmental Commission, Art and History Commission, Neighborhood Improvement Commission, just to name a few. That's because they all do kind of work hand in hand in some way with this process.
Yes, okay. So we want to thank you, Steve, for your presentation. It's very enlightening to all of us. And we want to thank everyone for their questions and comments. At this time, if we can move forward on an agenda, we will. Okay. We will be on item B, 5B, discuss and consider having a Parks and Recreation table at the Sustainable Seaside Earth Day event on April 23rd. 2023. Are there any comments from the commission on that?
Yes, I have a comment. We do have a table at Earth Day. And we're also going to be signing people up for the tree giveaway program, as well as having our regular Parks and Recreation information available. Regarding the tree giveaway, we're going at 3 o'clock, we're going to have a tree planted on City Hall lawn by the bench. And who is that person there again?
Roberts.
Doc Roberts. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And there will be a tree planted there as a demonstration to promote the tree giveaway program. We'll need help. If anybody's willing to volunteer, we need probably 2 more people besides myself at the Parks and Rec table. I don't know if you have any information, Dan, on anybody who might be there at the table also.
Well, that would be a commission run table, so ideally it would be the commissioners that would be there. Promoting the commission and everything that is going on for what we have going on here. And I think it would be a good opportunity. We can have some information about the survey for the master plan. Obviously, the information about the trees and any other commission activities that we want to promote.
Yes, I plan on being there. I looked at my calendar and I am free that day. So I will be at the table. If
Okay,
anyone else wants to commit at this time?
I've already committed to Diane to be there at 2:30.
Okay,
need one more person if possible.
And I'm sure we can also send a reminder email out to Terry. For the commission, just reminding them this week, because we are missing one person too, James.
I apologize. I don't know my schedule for that day. Yeah, I try to make as many of those events as I can, so, but I'm just really unsure. I don't want to commit and be wrong, so, sorry.
okay. Well, so I guess we decided there is a table there. So if everybody's satisfied with item B, we'll move to. Oh, is there any public comment?
Any members of the community in the chamber, please approach the podium. And if you are on Zoom, dialing with the phone, you can dial *9 or use the raise your hand feature. All right, Chair, I'm not seeing anyone in attendance, or there's no one on Zoom.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item C. Discuss having a special meeting for another park tour. We canceled the park tour. We took it off the agenda for this meeting, so we need dates for another tour. And do you want to do it on a regular meeting or our next regular meeting? That's what we'll agendize the park tour.
The next scheduled meeting
Yeah.
would be May 15th, and that is special. It's a regular meeting.
Yeah. So is everybody agreeing with that? Do we take a vote on that? That's an action item, actually.
Yes, that would be an action item to have. Well, or it would be to discuss whether or not you want to have a special meeting just for the park tour. But if the plan is just to have it at the next regular meeting, through the chair, we can put that on the agenda.
Okay.
So really, it would be whether or not the commission wants to vote having a meeting outside of that next regular scheduled one.
What is the ideas of the commission?
Just a clarifying question, are we putting on the agenda to discuss the park tour, or are we having to put the agenda on to actually have the park tour?
to have a park tour that is not at the next regularly scheduled meeting. That would be the discussion item. So for example, you want to put it on a Friday. That would be the discussion topic there. But if the plan is just to have it at the next regularly scheduled meeting on Monday, May 15th, the chair can we can just put that on the agenda and have it as an agendized item.
I have a question. So the budget. When is the city council's budget meeting? I mean, how do we? Don't we have a budget meeting where we talk about what the priorities are?
So
Parks and Rec?
So the work plans have been submitted. Well, this is not the topic, so we can't really get into that because this isn't an agendized topic to talk about the budget. But yeah, I can't, because we can't discuss the budget in this forum right now.
No, I know we can't discuss it, but are we going to be discussing it before June?
The work plan was submitted to the city manager and the finance director. There will be a budget meeting where, as in the past, where staff will get down there with the chair. We'll also discuss that. The dates for that has not been set yet.
I'd like to see the parks tour on a different date than our regularly scheduled meeting. That's my thought.
Commissioner Moulton,
Yes, I'd like to motion that we add the park tour to our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
it has been moved by Commissioner Chris Moulton that we have the park tour on our next regularly scheduled meeting of May 15th. It was seconded by Commissioner Jeanette Walton. Calling for the question. Public comment.
Those members in the chamber, please approach the podium.
My only comment is, what does a park tour encompass? And if it's being put on the regular agenda for the next May 17 meeting, if it can correlate during the time that the assessment is happening with the master plan, when their individual comes out. I don't know if that's doable, but I think it would be a nice addition to having them assess the parks and perhaps get some background on the conditions of the park and perhaps give some alluding information that they may not have already gotten. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you for your comments. I don't see anyone on Zoom.
No more questions. I'm calling for the vote. All in favor?
I can answer that question.
Okay. Oh, you can answer.
I have some basic information. I do believe that the assessment will be occurring that week. I have not been given the exact days and times on when they're coming. And it's my understanding that it's just the landscape architect coming and going to be doing the site assessment on their own with either myself or someone from Public Works. And to answer the question about the park tours, we had a whole meeting that we discussed, and then we laid out the parks in different pockets. And so before the time change back in fall, we had our first round of park tours, and then we had to stop them because of the darkness. So now we're on our second pocket that includes, I believe, Mescal Neal, Sabato, Highland Otis, and Portola Leslie Park. So those are the next parks that would be included on that tour.
Right. Okay. So moving right along. I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor? Nays have the same right.
Nay.
We have one nay. Are there any abstentions? Motion carries. All right. Item number 6, reports from recreation staff.
All right, Commission. So from the rec department, we recently just had our annual golden egg hunt at Oldenmeyer Center the Saturday before Easter. Had a really decent showing. We had a second go around with the sensory room, which was specifically for those individuals with special needs, which has been a great addition to that event. Great turnout. It went in the blink of an eye. 18,000 eggs were just gone. So it was really, really well done, and we're pleased and moving on to our next events going on. That was also the day we released the new summer fall activity guide. So that is now out and on the streets. You can pick up a hard copy at Oldenmeyer Center. We may have some here, but we may have run out already. And it's also online. So we got a lot of great programs some new ones that are coming out in the next cycle. And registration for that will open for residents on Monday, May 15th, and non-residents on Wednesday, May 17th. So make sure that if you want to get into those programs, my suggestion would be to create an account early. Make sure you check it. So that way, if you want to register online, you're ready to go at 8 a.m. when registration does open. Commissioner Nielsen did mention the tree giveaway program. That program is live. It's on the city website. So Seaside residents can fill out an application to get their free tree voucher. I will say that prior to me coming to the meeting today, we've had 36 people fill out the application already. And I believe 13 have already come and pick up their vouchers. The other ones everyone's been notified that they can pick up their voucher, but they may be waiting to come to the tree demo. Hopes, fingers crossed that we have those demos coming up this weekend as well. So we're excited to get that program out there. Just when we're looking on the horizon, a couple of things that we got coming up. I mentioned registration opening. We got International Day in May, May 20th. We are finalizing the band lineup for Blues in the Park. So we'll be starting to see some promotion coming out about that pretty quickly. And then also our annual 4th of July event, which will be here on City Hall lawn. And then there's a co-sponsorship with Building Healthy Communities for the Juneteenth celebration, which will be here at City Hall and at Laguna Grande Park as well. It's going to be a really large celebration, and that's going to be on Saturday, June 18th. So that's looking out a little bit to the future, but just, kind of putting it on everyone's radar. So that's my report from the rec department.
Thank you. Reports from park staff.
Good evening. My name is Dave Fortune. I'm the maintenance and utility superintendent. So we're going to start off with Ellis Park. So Ellis Park has multi-use synthetic turf, sports court, picnic areas, playground, grass fields, and landscaping. So the rains, we just found out that there's a drainage issue that's happening at the park. And so right now we're working on correcting that action. So they're in the process of that. So construction started in mid-April of 22. Construction was substantially completed in late January 23 with the ribbon cutting January 27th. There's a couple punch list items that are still remaining. The basketball court net we're having an issue with, and we may have to end up replacing that, but we expect to be completed in May with Ellis Park. Highlight notice. So there's going to be a spiral slide, monkey bars, wood chips play surface, and a new concrete structure, concrete curb barrier in the lower northwest corner section of the park. So the equipment has been purchased, but it hasn't been delivered yet. City staff has 100% of the plans and will be bidding out the project in June. Bidding for the contractor to perform site preparation, play structure and equipment installation, construction of the concrete curb barrier will occur in June. And construction starts is planned to start in the beginning of July and end beginning of August. Next slide. Lincoln Cunningham. So a full-size basketball court with basketball posts, hoops, trash receptacles, benches, and stormwater treatment. So the city has, city staff had the 100% plan and will be bidding that project out later this month. Construction is planned to start in June and it will end late September. Next slide. Fernando Pachetti, Mescal Neal Parks. So Fernando Park Improvement Project, a swing set, seahorse rider, artificial rock for climbing, hand sanitizer station, picnic table and bench. So February 16th, 23, council approved a budget appropriation of $80,000 from the general fund to the project. Pachetti Dog Park bench and Mescal Neal Park picnic benches, picnic tables and benches have been ordered. On March 2nd, 23, council approved Neighborhood Improvement Commission allocation of $90,000 to the Fernando Park project and $20,000 to the Pachetti and Mescal Neal Parks for the benches. Project is currently in design and construction will start in September for Fernando. So here's some pictures of Fernando Park. There's a terraced area, so that's a little challenging with the play structures that they're trying to work on. So that's why it's taking a little bit, but we're getting through that. Here is kind of the layout. You can see kind of the raised area there in the middle. Here is a rendering of what it will look like with the play equipment that they're looking at installing. Pachetti Dog Park, you can see that there's some chairs. Somebody has brought some chairs, looks like from their house. And so we're trying to get those replaced for the safety of the people visiting the dog park. Mescal Neal, this was before there used to be a structure at the top, but it had to be removed. It was old. It was from, I think, the 60s or something like that. And here's a picture of it being city staff has removed it. So we're going to look at installing benches and picnic tables around the park. Lincoln Cunningham and Solis, Havana Solis Park concepts. Concept plans provide park layouts, determine trail locations, ensure proper drainage, and prepare for accessibility in anticipation of future park. January 30th, 23, council approved Whitson Engineering to prepare concept plans, including trail locations, sitting rather than moving forward with phase 1 trail project. Survey of the site has already been started. Draft concept plans to Parks and Rec, it's supposed to be Parks and Rec Commission on Monday, August 21st, and final concept to Parks and Rec Commission on Monday, September 18th, both of 23. We know. Oh, Patino Park. Parking lot, playground, visitors bleachers, accessible pathways, benches, tree removal, stormwater treatment, landscaping, sod and irrigation. So that went out on February 16th. Construction bids came in. Council approved on February 16th a PSA with Wallace Group to provide construction management, inspection, testing, and CDBG compliant services. March 2nd, council awarded the construction agreement to Granite Rock. Pre-construction meeting was held on March 23rd, and construction started April 14th, last Friday, and ends in November of 23. Any questions?
Questions, Commission?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. At Catino Park. So glad to see Granite Rock Company doing the next phase. Anyway, there are some issues at that park, like the netting that goes from the top and it hangs down to the cyclone fencing is like sagging down in a lot of areas. And then also there is some of the well, I said cyclone fencing, but it's chain link fencing. There's some of those areas in the chain link fencing that are like bent. And even some of the poles where it connects, like at the bottom in the first base side dugout, I noticed is missing the piece. But there's, I mean, that's just a couple. But I think that whole field, as far as the fencing and the netting and stuff, needs to be looked at and tightened up. You know, we don't want it to like get worse and be totally irreparable or whatever.
I will have staff take a look at it.
Thank you.
Let's see.
I have questions.
Yeah.
Back to Fernando Park, is that tree going to be cut down in the park? I hope not. I'm just looking at the rendering. And
I haven't seen the full design of it. Our engineering staff is, but it kind of looks like it will be, it looks like it's within where the play structure is going to be located. And so you have to look at the fall zone for the equipment. And so the park is small. And so trying to fit play equipment into there, we may have to, it looks like we're probably going to have to end up removing that.
and then for Pachetti Dog Park, the chairs you mentioned a bench or benches?
Yeah,
that
yes,
would be-
the Neighborhood Improvement Commission donated money to purchase benches that we can install there so that we can have because like I said, it's like somebody brought their
Yeah,
furniture.
lawn
from there.
chairs.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, remind me again for Mescal Neal Park, what's replacing
Well-
the pergola?
The pergola it's just, we're
It's
getting,
gone.
yes, it's gone. We're getting benches and picnic tables to install in the park. But
Thank you.
no pergola at this time.
Thanks.
Questions? Thank you for your presentation. I wanted to mention at the Highland Otis Park that the volleyball court there, it's not really a court, it's just the regular dirt that's there, which is not conducive to playing volleyball. And nobody's mentioned anything about putting real sand in there and sort of, like a frame to keep the sand in. But to play volleyball there is kind of dangerous because there's things in there that when you fall, you're going to hurt yourself. And it's not really attractive to want to play volleyball there. I wonder if something can be done to put real sand in a contained area for the volleyball nets.
I will have to take a look at it and see what it's going to take to fix that up.
And the other question I have was, tell me what stormwater treatment is. Is it like a grate or something? Or when you talk about stormwater treatment,
So it's infiltration. It's like a bioswale or something where
Oh,
water
okay.
and it goes into the ground.
Sinks
So
into the ground.
yes,
Okay, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure what that meant.
yeah, there's different structures you can install in there. You can have, like saying a bioswale that you can see, or you can have below ground structures. I don't know if you've ever seen at a job site where there's kind of yellow, they're kind of look like half pipes kind of, and so they have rock. And so the water will go into there and infiltrate back into, Seaside being sand, water infiltrates really quickly here. So that's what it is.
Thank you.
My only question is concerning the Lincoln Cunningham and Havana Sully's Park concept. With the conceptual plan and then phase 1 trails as well as the master plans, like, is there any congruence to how the trails are going to be addressed? Or is it on like a first come, first served basis on where the trails are going to be? Yeah, I mean, it might be kind of overreaching, but in the Public Works Department, is who are you guys waiting for first?
So do you know?
It's my understanding that once we get the concept plans and we get the input and we decide on and where the new trail footprint will be, that'll give the council and staff the kind of the framework to move forward. And it's my understanding that the trails will take precedent over the amenities, but we wanted to make sure that we did our due diligence to identify the trails, because we know that the way the footprint is now most likely will change, and we didn't want to just redo those trails as is here and then realize, oh, we gotta move things around, and then we would be taking out those new trails that we just put in. So we wanted to make sure that we had everything kind of in line first, because where the playground is now may not necessarily be where it is in the future. And, it may have a different access point or whatnot. So hopefully that answers the question, but that's kind of the process that we kind of moved with.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dave, for your presentation. I do have a question. Diane, Commissioner Nielsen mentioned sand, and I live, and it's not about one of the parks that you talked about, but it's still a park. And the sandboxes, the sandbox in Salvador Park has these weeds sticking up like straws. And those things can be dangerous to the kids. So I want to know if you have any plans on just totally replacing the sandboxes in all the parks with new sand.
Well, we're looking at different parks, and what we would do is we would pull the sand out and put more of a wood chip, ADA compliant wood chip into those. That we're we were seeing what was going to happen with the master plan, and because it's expensive to purchase the chip, but I can take a look at it and see what we can do in the meantime, and maybe if we can get some more sand in there or something, just in the meantime until we can do so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. If no one else has any questions, thank you so much for your presentation. Reports from commissioners. That would be. We want to start with Commissioner Walton.
I don't have anything.
Commissioner Daniels.
I went out with Blue Zones and the Green Cadres. We at Havana Sully's Park on Friday. We was out there from 8 to 4. Did some weeding, some mulching. And it was just good to have them out. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Chris Moulton, Commissioner Moulton.
Thank you. So I've started dialoguing with Brady Bergeron. He's one of the ticket sales administrators for Monterey Bay, the Union Football Club. and trying to see about getting a tent at the field suite, which is new this year. It's on the east side of the stadium to the left of the supporter section, if you're facing from the ocean. But seeing if something that we could do to engage with the public, since the stadium is in Seaside, and we don't have much presence there. I think it would be a wonderful opportunity for the commissioners or council folks, if they wanted to be there, to set up a table. We could, promote things like the park master plan and such, as well as recreation programs. So I am just in the beginning phases of that. And then I also just wanted to say, this is a 9-person commission and we are 7 right now. So there are available seats for any willing, enthusiastic Seaside residents to apply and join the commission if they are so interested. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Nielsen.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Commissioner Maxwell.
Okay, I'm all for that idea, Chris. That's a awesome opportunity. Yeah, I'm gonna report on a couple. Because I am the president of the Seaside Police Activities League, and we are partnered with the Recreation Department. And we just had our end of the basketball season banquet last week, was it? Yes. We had close to 250 participants this year, and at the banquet there was close to 400 people in attendance. It was a really successful season, and it was a really fun night too. Also tomorrow at Oldemeyer Center, the senior programs is having a sock hop luncheon and dance. No? Oh, this is only Monday. I'm sorry. This Thursday. Anyway, that's always a good event to attend. The doors open at 11. The food is served at 11:30, and then there's entertainment after that, and dancing. It was something else I forgot now. Anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you. Next is me. Well, I have nothing to report. I have nothing to report. I just want to say thank you. This was my first meeting as the chair, and I hope I did okay. At this time, we'll call, do you have anything there? At this time, we'll call for adjournment. All right. 7:37:29.